It is now time for our weekly political segment, KVUE Face Off. Joining us this morning is Ed Espinoza, Executive Director of Progress Texas, and Matt McCoviak, Chairman of the Travis County Republican Party. Thank you both for being here with us today.
Good to be back.
You know, we are less than 3 months away from the primary election, and I want to talk about the Senate race because there was a big announcement yesterday. The Democratic senators, kind of their pack, is lending their endorsement to MJ Hagar. Out of all of the 12 Democrats running to potentially face John Cornyn, she is the one they want to work with. Ed, your initial thoughts on this?
So, look, it's the Political Action Committee for the Democratic senators out of D.C. It's not unusual for them to get involved in races. The Democratic Congressional Campaign does it. The Republican Senatorial Campaigning Committee does it as well. The important thing to remember is that the Senate race in Texas is not going to be decided by a PAC out of D.C. It's going to be decided by the voters of Texas, and both MJ Hagar, Christina Zunzun, Amanda Edwards, and all the other candidates in the race are aware of that, and I think that they'll keep working for it. This just happens to be one of many endorsements that you're going to see in the process of this campaign.
I mean, not unusual to endorse, but we know that this race is likely going to go to a runoff, so why get in this early?
The important thing to look at is the fundraising deadline of December 31st. If it were up to me, I would have waited until after that deadline to make any type of endorsement. What they're probably trying to do is encourage more money for MJ Hagar leading up to December 31st. But what they've also done is given the other candidates something to point at to raise money off of as well. You're going to see a lot of fundraising emails go around between now and the end of December. That's not unusual. I think the amount will just start to tick up even higher than we might have normally seen.
Now, what people may not realize is Senator Cornyn is not running uncontested. There are some Republicans who are trying to challenge him in the primary, but we haven't really heard from them at all.
No, and he avoided a serious primary challenge. There was some chatter about a couple individuals, particularly a state senator named Pat Fallon, who looked at and explored it for a few weeks. There's strong support for Senator Cornyn among Republicans. He's in strong shape. He's not going to face a primary. His opponents are not raising money, really, don't have significant support, aren't building statewide organizations. The Democrats have a large field. We've talked about this on this show before. They have a large field. They have 4 or 5 candidates who are kind of all pretty competitive with each other. There's not anyone really, I don't think, that's distanced from the rest from the pack. This endorsement from the DSCC this week is an attempt to really give Hagar that boost, to bring in more lobby money, to demonstrate that they think she can win, and I think to try to halt the momentum that Christina Simpson has put together on the progressive side. So we'll see. I mean, you still have State Senator Royce West running. You have a councilman from Houston, Amanda Edwards, a former Congressman, Chris Bell, who ran for governor. I mean, this field has, I would argue, second-tier talent. But we'll see if one person can really rise up and become the front runner.
Yeah, and of course, I heard you laugh when you said that. So rather than go on with my next question, I'll let you say what you want to say.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's second-tier talent. Look, it's tough to put together any kind of Senate campaign in the span of a couple of months, even in the span of a year. John Cornyn has an 18-year head start. What he also has is approval ratings that aren't anything like Ted Cruz. Now, Ted Cruz, not a real popular guy in Texas, and he was an easy target for progressives 2 years ago. But John Cornyn, while he doesn't inspire the same kind of angst amongst progressives, he also doesn't inspire the same type of support amongst conservatives. 2/3 of Texans either don't like John Cornyn or don't know him. He's kind of an unknown quantity, and that's not a good shape to be in 18 years into the job. So while these candidates may still be getting their sea legs or their running legs, as it is, they're running a race, I think there's a lot of campaign left, and things can ramp up very quickly. Remember, Beto O'Rourke, nobody knew who he was 2 years out, a year out, and then his numbers skyrocketed.
But I want to tee Matt up because we're not a year out, 2 years out. We are less than 3 months out from this, primary. And the last UT Texas Tribune poll found that the person that Democratic voters knew the most was former Congressman Chris Bell. But even then, 76% of Democratic voters had no clue who any of these candidates were.
Yeah, and when I say second-tier talents, I mean, these are people who are not statewide figures. They're running to become a statewide candidate, and it is a huge leap to go from being a local political elected official to being someone who can incredibly be called a statewide candidate. It's a significant task, and the time is running. We have basically less than a year now. We have 2.5 or 3 months to the primary. The Democrats are going to have a primary runoff, which means they won't have a nominee until late May. By that point, Senator Cornyn will likely have $15 million in the bank and be in a very strong shape. He's running a very strong ground game, a significant statewide campaign. He hired a great campaign manager, John Jackson, who moved over from Abbott's team. And he does not look. This is not about whether Cornyn has strong support in the Republican primary. He has no Republican primary opposition that's considerable. What matters is the general election. I think Cornyn is in strong shape for the general election. He's not viewed the way Cruz was among the general electorate. And the Democrats aren't going to have a candidate like Beto O'Rourke, who raised $80 million, who was, on Ellen DeGeneres' show, got enormous help from all over the place. They're not going to have that kind of candidate running this time.
Ed.
We might not have a Beto O'Rourke, but we will have something that Beto O'Rourke never had, which is a presidential candidate at the top of the ticket, making knowledge around this election nearly universal. Let's not even say yearly, let's just say universal. That's an important thing to remember. Yes, the early primary is a problem. Texas has this primary in March. Most states that have a presidential March primary don't do it in conjunction with the state primary. They have it at a later date. Colorado is one of those states. New Hampshire is one of those states. Why are we having a primary at a time when most voters haven't tuned in yet? I would argue that we need to move our primary to April, move the filing deadline out of the Christmas season and into January. And I think it would be a much better service to the voters. It would certainly give the candidates a little bit more time and might make this endless campaign cycle a little bit shorter.
All right, well, it's a totally different topic there, and unfortunately, we are out of time. So thank you both for being here with us today. For our viewers, you can recatch this segment on KVUE.com after the newscast. We'll be right back.